A study indicates that the cluttered garages of Americans are negatively impacting the adoption of electric vehicles. Trump has announced that the U.S. will not grant approval for solar or wind power projects as the Trump administration initiates a national security probe into the import. A study indicates that the cluttered garages of Americans are negatively impacting the adoption of electric vehicles. Trump has announced that the U.S. will not grant approval for solar or wind power projects as the Trump administration initiates a national security probe into the importation of wind turbines. The Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, FERC, reports that solar and wind energy accounted for 91% of the new power generating capacity in the U.S. by the end of May 2025. Science highlights that recovering byproducts from U.S. metal mines could decrease the country's dependence on imports for essential minerals.
India has implemented a prohibition on real money gaming, which poses a significant threat to a sector valued at $23 billion. This move is part of the country's efforts to address issues such as addiction and fraudulent activities associated with online betting applications. The United Arab Emirates has included newborns in a prominent genome project. In Japan, a survey conducted by Save the Children reveals that over 90% of families facing economic disadvantages are experiencing difficulties in providing adequate food for their children. The highest German court has reversed a previous ruling that stated ad blocking is not piracy. In the UK, the government is proposing that people delete files to conserve water. Missionaries in Brazil are employing hidden audio devices to spread their message to the country's isolated communities. A recent study conducted by Google Cloud reveals that an impressive 90% of game developers are currently incorporating artificial intelligence into their work processes. In a related development, Microsoft has announced that the upcoming Windows 12 will be designed to comprehend user intent, moving beyond traditional click-based interactions. Google has reported a significant reduction in the energy consumption associated with AI queries, achieving a 33-fold decrease over the past year.
Recent studies indicate that residing near the ocean might extend your lifespan by an additional year. Another investigation suggests that the aging process can propagate throughout a body through a single protein. Furthermore, a worldwide analysis has uncovered a universal rhythm in human speech, characterized by 1.6-second intonation units.
The release of DeepSeek's upcoming AI model has been postponed due to an unsuccessful attempt to incorporate Chinese chips. An unexplained disruption disconnected China from international internet traffic for over an hour. Chinese state media has labeled the United States as a surveillance empire because of tracking devices found in chip shipments, while China is advising companies to steer clear of NVIDIA H20 chips following the resumption of sales by Trump.
Sam Altman acknowledges that AI is currently experiencing a bubble. A report from MIT reveals that a staggering 95% of generative AI projects implemented by companies are not yielding any results, despite the massive investments of billions of dollars. Wired and Business Insider inadvertently published articles that were generated by AI, using the byline of a journalist who appears to be fictitious.
Do Kwon has admitted guilt to fraud charges in the United States related to the $40 billion cryptocurrency collapse. In other news, the Chinese real estate company Evergrande has been removed from the Hong Kong stock market. Researchers at Black Hat have concluded that phishing training is largely ineffective. Reports indicate that Google's AI overviews have misled users, with some phone numbers being identified as scams. A study suggests that conservatives are more open to accepting AI-generated recommendations compared to liberals. Researchers have discovered that the simulated reasoning capabilities of LLMs are merely a brittle mirage.
Reddit has implemented measures to prevent the Wayback Machine from archiving user posts. The organization behind Wikipedia has faced a setback in its legal battle against the UK Online Safety Act regulations. Meta has reversed its previous guidelines that allowed chatbots to engage in inappropriate conversations with children, following reports from Reuters that these AI rules enable bots to conduct sensual discussions with minors and provide misleading medical information. SCMP provides commentary as China makes a significant investment in artificial intelligence, aiming to inject trillions into its economy as part of a broader national computing initiative. Intel has announced that it will offer the U.S. government a 10% share, according to statements made by Trump. Microsoft has reportedly restricted China's early access to bug disclosures and proof-of-concept exploit code. Indonesia and the United States have initiated the Super Garuda Shield military exercises, involving 13 nations. A report claims that North Korea possesses a hidden long-range missile base located close to the Chinese border. Russian missiles have struck a factory owned by the United States and Ukraine, occurring shortly after peace negotiations led by Trump. Mike Pence has stated that Europe will need to bear the majority of the responsibility for ensuring Ukraine's security, while the Pentagon indicates that the United States will have a limited role in providing security guarantees for Ukraine.
SCMP remarks on Kim Jong-un's emotional display of mourning for North Korea's casualties in the Ukraine conflict, suggesting it is a strategic act of grief. Russia is seeking the authority to veto any Western security assurances provided to Ukraine. The WSJ discloses that the Pentagon has discreetly prevented Ukraine from launching long-range missile attacks on Russia.
The number of immigrants in the United States has decreased for the first time in many years. The Secretary of Homeland Security has announced that the entire southern border wall will be painted black to deter individuals from attempting to climb it. The Trump administration plans to conduct a thorough review of all 55 million foreigners currently holding U.S. visas.
The Times argues that academics are responsible for the chaos caused by the woke movement in universities. The Washington Examiner asserts that commercial surrogacy reduces children to mere commodities. Hillary Clinton foresees that the Supreme Court will eventually reverse its decision on same-sex marriage.
Virginia Giuffre's memoir, detailing her experiences as an accuser of Jeffrey Epstein, is set to be published after her death. Documents related to Epstein that were released to Congress are largely considered to be previously disclosed materials. According to a Democrat, a transcript indicates that Ghislaine Maxwell never saw Donald Trump in any inappropriate setting.
The African Union is advocating for the use of a world map that accurately represents the continent's size. In the United Kingdom, Nigel Farage has announced plans for the Reform Party, which include the mass deportation of individuals arriving in small boats. Farage is proposing a two-tier system of rights to give precedence to British citizens. In the United States, Donald Trump has dismissed the top official responsible for economic data amid a market decline caused by tariffs.
The Dutch foreign minister has resigned from the interim government due to the situation in Gaza. Israel has given the green light to a settlement initiative that might split the West Bank. Trump referred to Netanyahu as a war hero and remarked, "I guess I am, too."
Trump initiates investigation into furniture imports, paving the way for potential tariffs. Canada removes numerous retaliatory tariffs imposed on the United States. A new trade agreement between the U.S. and the EU establishes a maximum tariff rate of 15% on exports, with Axios noting that businesses are finding it increasingly difficult to maintain current price levels.
Kamala Harris is set to go on a tour to promote her memoir, which focuses on her presidential campaign. Elon Musk is reportedly considering J.D. Vance as a potential candidate for the 2028 presidential election, while simultaneously putting a pause on his plans to establish a new political party. The White House has established an account on TikTok, the very app that former President Donald Trump had previously attempted to ban. Wired indicates that the White House has seemingly instructed federal employees to implement Grok as soon as possible. Additionally, South Korea's exports increased by 1.3% compared to the previous year in August, driven by strong demand for chips, according to data. Furthermore, Nvidia's two most enigmatic customers accounted for 39% of the chipmaker's revenue in the second quarter.
The Trump administration is taking steps to reduce the length of visas for students and media personnel. Preliminary data indicates that approximately 1.2 million immigrants have left the U.S. labor force during Trump's tenure. Additionally, Trump has announced his intention to mandate a voter ID requirement for every vote. Hidden rhythms between your stomach and brain could influence your mood. In a warmer world, certain individuals experience accelerated aging, according to researchers. Humans breathe in up to 68,000 microplastic particles each day, as revealed by a study.
Tesla initially claimed it lacked crucial information regarding a deadly accident, but a hacker subsequently discovered it. According to Reuters, Stellantis has decided to put its Level 3 driver assistance program on hold and reduce its software development goals, as indicated by sources. Additionally, Microsoft Word has been updated to automatically save newly created documents to the cloud. A study conducted by Stanford University has found that the adoption of artificial intelligence is associated with a 13% reduction in employment opportunities for young workers in the United States. In the UK, trade unions are advocating for a strategy that prioritizes the needs of workers in the face of AI advancements, as there is growing concern about job security. Meanwhile, French President Emmanuel Macron has promised to take retaliatory measures if Europe's digital independence is threatened.
FTC chair claims Gmail engages in partisan filtering. Google defends spam filters as non-ideological. In the United States, Republicans launch an investigation into Wikipedia, citing allegations of systematic bias. Zuckerberg urged Trump to address digital taxes prior to his tariff promise.
4chan and Kiwi Farms have initiated legal action against the United Kingdom concerning its legislation on age verification. Meanwhile, Apple has cautioned the UK about the potential consequences of implementing stricter regulations on technology. Additionally, Google is aiming to enhance the security of side-loading Android applications by ensuring that the identities of developers are verified.
Human interaction with the natural world has decreased by 60% over the span of 2 centuries, according to a recent study, as the vocabulary people use to describe nature is disappearing, as another study reveals. Additionally, deforestation has resulted in the death of 500,000 individuals over the last 2 decades, as found in a separate study. Furthermore, air pollution stemming from oil and gas industries leads to 90,000 premature deaths annually in the United States, as indicated by a new study.
Anthropic reaches a settlement in a class action lawsuit filed by authors in the United States, who claim that their copyrights were violated. Media organizations in Japan have initiated a lawsuit against the AI-powered search engine Perplexity, alleging that it has infringed upon their copyrights. Will Smith has been accused of employing artificial intelligence to fabricate a crowd in footage of a concert performance.
The percentage of Americans engaging in reading for enjoyment has decreased by 40% over the span of 2 decades. South Korea plans to prohibit the use of mobile phones in school classrooms. A study reveals that young children diagnosed with ADHD are frequently given medication at an accelerated rate.
A German court has ordered Cupertino to cease referring to Apple Watches as carbon neutral. South Australia is set to become the first global location to prohibit the use of soy sauce in fish-shaped containers. India has entered into an agreement with Japan to acquire low-carbon technologies.
Stock exchanges are calling on regulators to take stricter action against tokenized stocks. El Salvador has moved its Bitcoin reserve into several wallets to minimize the risk of quantum attacks. A PayPal error has caused turmoil, leading European banks to halt billions in transactions.
In the United States, an online group claims responsibility for a series of campus swatting incidents, which have previously caused panic and led to an investigation by the FBI. Meanwhile, a shooting at a Catholic school in Minneapolis resulted in the deaths of 2 children and injuries to 17 others. In response to the Minnesota shooting, Pope Leo has called for an end to what he describes as a pandemic of arms.
Researchers have successfully developed space-time crystals composed of twisted light. China has activated a massive neutrino detector, a project that spanned 10 years in its construction. A recent study reveals that the use of workplace jargon negatively impacts employee morale and collaboration.
Meta modifies the responses of its AI chatbot for teenagers as the Senate initiates an investigation into romantic dialogues. According to a previous report by Reuters, Meta developed flirtatious chatbots featuring Taylor Swift and other celebrities without obtaining their consent. Meanwhile, OpenAI announces that it is reviewing users' ChatGPT interactions and notifying law enforcement of any concerning content. Additionally, Anthropic plans to commence the training of its AI models using chat transcripts.
WhatsApp addresses a zero-click vulnerability exploited to infiltrate Apple users with spyware. The FBI issues an alert about the expansion of a Chinese hacking campaign, now impacting 80 nations. TikTok, owned by ByteDance, halts its live streaming feature in Indonesia amid escalating protests, which have turned violent against elite governance, resulting in the looting of the Indonesian finance minister's residence as unrest intensifies. Indonesia's leader announces he will concede to certain protester demands following riots.
even in traditionally conservative states, might experience federal law enforcement presence on their streets, and she claims that Los Angeles would have burned down without the National Guard deployment ordered by Trump. Meanwhile, Newsom has initiated crime teams across the state, prompting the White House to ridicule this move as merely copying Trump's agenda. Additionally, the California Supreme Court has dismissed the latest Republican attempt to stop the redistricting plan, while the Republican leader in the California Assembly has suggested dividing the state in reaction to the redistricting initiative supported by Newsom. Furthermore, the mayor of Chicago has signed an order outlining a strategy to counter a potential crackdown by Trump. Xi Jinping pledges £1 billion in loans to support.
New Zealand has begun allowing holders of golden visas to enter its luxury real estate market. A devastating earthquake has resulted in the death of over 800 people in Afghanistan. The Kyiv Post provides commentary on the efforts by Xi and Putin to advocate for a new global order that poses a challenge to the dominance of the United States.
Uber India begins providing drivers with opportunities to gather and categorize data for AI models. Renowned computer scientist Geoffrey Hinton warns that artificial intelligence will significantly enrich a small number of individuals while impoverishing the majority, as he describes the technology as a catalyst for substantial unemployment and increased profits, which he attributes to the capitalist system. A Wall Street Journal NORC poll reveals that Americans are losing confidence in the belief that diligent work results in economic advancement.
In Switzerland, the CSCS has unveiled Apertus, marking the country's inaugural large-scale open, multilingual language model, representing a significant advancement in generative AI with a focus on transparency and diversity. This model has been trained on an impressive 15 trillion tokens spanning over 1,000 languages, with 40% of the dataset being non-English. Alibaba has introduced its largest AI model to date, aiming to compete.
The Wall Street Journal reports that Chinese hackers posed as a leading U.S. lawmaker during trade negotiations. The U.S. is investigating a malware email aimed at these trade discussions with China.
Following the issuance of a final warning to Hamas, Trump is looking to finalize a deal concerning Gaza in the near future. The United States has imposed sanctions on Palestinians due to their request for a war crimes investigation. The United Arab Emirates has cautioned Israel that annexing the West Bank would constitute a red line that would disrupt regional integration.
Zelensky claims that Trump's summit in Alaska provided Putin with his desired outcomes. Sources indicate that the United States plans to reduce certain security funds allocated to nations adjacent to Russia. Leaders from the Pacific Islands are convening to deliberate on matters concerning security and climate change.
The Wall Street Journal reports that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and the Department of Health and Human Services are planning to connect autism to the use of Tylenol during pregnancy and to deficiencies in folate. The CEO of Pfizer has stated that Donald Trump is worthy of the Nobel Peace Prize for his role in the development of COVID vaccines. In the United States, discussions within the Justice Department about potentially banning transgender individuals from owning firearms have caused widespread
that COVID-19 is no longer among the top 10 causes of death.
Hong Kong legislators have turned down a proposal to acknowledge same-sex partnerships. Shares in vaccine companies have declined following reports that the FDA plans to suggest a connection between COVID-19 vaccines and fatalities in children. The World Health Organization has reported a 50% increase in cholera-related deaths for the year 2024.
Romania becomes the second NATO country in a week to detect a Russian drone in its airspace. The New York Times notes that Russia has prioritized drone production, leading to an increase in drones in the skies. Donald Trump urges the EU to impose 100% tariffs on China and India to pressure Vladimir Putin, linking new Russia sanctions to NATO tariffs on China, and stating he will impose more sanctions on Russia if NATO does. Reuters reports that, due to concerns over Russian aggression, Poles are increasingly seeking military training, prompting NATO to strengthen the defense of Europe's eastern flank following Poland's downing of drones.
Violent confrontations occurred in London as 110,000 individuals participated in a far-right demonstration opposing immigration. 2 weeks prior, similar clashes took place in Australia, where thousands protested against immigration, with the government associating these protests with neo-Nazi groups. A graphic video depicting Charlie Kirk's death has rapidly circulated, highlighting the diminishing influence of traditional media. Furthermore, a right-wing influencer was present alongside immigration and customs enforcement agents during raids in Chicago. Lula praises Bolsonaro's verdict, asserts to Trump that Brazil's democracy is non-negotiable, and pushes back against tariffs, emphasizing that the country's democracy is not on the table. 2 days ago, Brazil's Bolsonaro received a 27-year sentence following a significant coup plot conviction. The New York Times notes that, after Bolsonaro's conviction, Brazil already considers his amnesty. In Nepal, a youth group successfully overthrows the government and elects a new leader through a Discord poll. 6 days ago, Nepal imposed a ban on Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, and 23 other social media platforms. Protests against this ban have intensified, with demonstrators setting buildings on fire, resulting in at least 19 deaths during the Gen Z protests. Nepal's prime minister resigns following the deaths at the protests caused by the social media ban. A British Army veteran is on trial facing 2 charges related to the Bloody Sunday murders.
In the United States, a proposed new bill would empower Senator Rubio to revoke the passports of American citizens based on their political expressions. Former President Trump plans to bestow the Medal of Freedom upon Charlie Kirk following his assassination on a college campus. Thousands have gathered at a U.S. memorial to honor Charlie Kirk, a right-wing activist who was killed. Hegseth has stated that the Pentagon is monitoring service members and civilians who are celebrating Kirk's death. Furthermore, UC Berkeley has provided the Trump administration with a list of 160 names, reminiscent of actions taken during the McCarthy era.